Today, I'll be speaking to us. I'm just here for us to rub minds together and largely speak about how to map a PhD application journey. Single objective for today is to provide guidance and insight for prospective PhD candidates. Let's see how we can chart our course into getting the PhD, bringing it home, like Dr. Abel will say. We need to bring it home. So what is it all about PhD? What's the PhD all about? I believe we all know that it's the highest level of academic degree one can uh, look out for. After that, the rest is you just do your research and then you get promoted. It's not like you have to submit another thesis again or do another research that is being supervised by another person, if I'm correct. So it's the highest level of academic degree. And typically, a PhD runs for 3 to 4 years, which is full time. Otherwise, for part time, 5 to 6 years. Now, this depends largely on how soon you're able to finish your thesis and do your defense. If they do your viva, there is no reason to revisit the project. Then typically you conclude within these times, and most schools runs 3 to 4 years for full time and 5 to 6 years for part time. The process generally involves the application, obviously, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. Then the literature review is essential. The original research, it has to be original. And that's one thing about PhD, that's novelty. You see, original research and the collection of results, you have to get your results after conducting your research. And then you produce a thesis. We produce a thesis, and of course, we want to defend that thesis. What we should consider when applying for a PhD or when considering doing a PhD, you have to look at your research interest. What do you have interest in? And because really, everyone knows those senior colleagues in it, knows that the journey is not easy. It's a worthy journey, but it could get to a point where one feels like this is becoming too much. But your passion and your interest, it will be very important as a driver to help one navigate it all through. So you identify your research interests, and then you look at topics or fields that you want to dwell on, because unlike the BSc and the MSc, now we are trying to narrow down. We don't want it's not jack of all trade anymore. It is now you want to specialize. So we want to look at a specific area of field or topic that you want to dwell upon. It is also important to consider supervisors, finding supervisors. This is important with PhDs because really, if you have a fantastic project, you have a fantastic idea you want to do for you want to carry on during your PhD period, but there is no supervisor. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. So finding supervisors is very key. Choosing the right program and institution is also key. We need to research the institution. We need to know, does the school have the appropriate and adequate resources that will support our project goal, our ambition? See, this can involve you looking at if, for instance, you're doing a PhD in computing, do they have the computing resources? See, and if we're doing a PhD in health area, how do we access data? Because this has to do with human data, you know. So we need to consider that. research the institution? Do they have the capacity? Uh, do they have the right set of people who are interested in your research area? Uh, People say if you have the right supervisor, if you have a good supervisor, PhD 3, 4 years can seem as though it's just 1 or 2 years. With the other way around, it can seem longer and very tedious. So research the institution. Look at the institution. Do they have the resources? Then we want to see what are the program requirements and what is expected of you. So for some institutions, they are ready to tutor and guide in some areas when we get to some challenging points during the PhD. But for some other institutions, you are a research student, you need to do your research, just come present your research. They touch light, they give you a guideline, and then you go on. And so the kind of support you get is important, and what is expected, what you're supposed to do is equally important. I know we'll have more time to talk about this during question and answer, and then we deliberate. Your application. So what does this comprise of? You want to have statement of purpose. You want to have your proposal, your research proposal. You want to have your letters of recommendation. You want to have your CV. For some, a statement of purpose is called motivation letter in some institutions. So these are the basic things. My senior colleagues here on this call can as well guide us in additional components. I mean, things we need to include in our application. It varies in some schools, from schools to schools, from institutions to institutions, but basically, we need this once we have your CV, letters of recommendation from academics. And of course, for some, they might even require, if we have been working, you need a recommendation letter from your supervisor at work. But then academics, at least two, is important. Research proposal and the statement of purpose. Other things that we may want to consider includes funding. PhD is expensive to run. No doubt about that. But thankfully, institutions get grants and provide funding for PhD. So you want to look at if you have the financial capability to fund your PhD project yourself, well and good. But if not, then you want to look for funded projects, or funded PhDs, that's scholarship, so to speak. Then you want to look at your methodology, your data collection. How do you intend to source your data? How do you intend to run the research? That's your methodology in all. Then your results and analysis. How do you intend to? So we need to have a view, a projected view of all these, even as of now. Then importantly, also, you want to build useful networks. I intentionally put this there because I personally benefited from this. Maybe in the course of our chats after this presentation, I will elaborate more on useful networks. Then time and task management. PhD is, I'll say, permit me to say, cumbersome. It's heavy. For those senior colleagues here, they know, and they'll be able to speak on that also. So you need to be able to manage the workload very well. Otherwise, one can get that's overloaded. I mean, there's this word for it now. If I remember, I say it. Fatigue. Yeah, fatigue can set in, and if you don't manage your workload properly, which starts from even quality time management skills, it can put the whole thing in a bad shape. And eventually, we have had cases of people who started PhD and quit along the way. You see, we don't want to have that, especially for some of us in this new crop, especially passing through um, this audience today. We want to see people that will start a PhD and complete it. See, so time and task management skill is essential. You need to hold it tight. And why are we saying this? We are not saying this for the end of the program, but at the start, because there are tools that you need to put in your toolkit, I mean, your toolbox to get started so that you don't get fatigued along the way. As simple as that, that's my presentation, and I want to say thank you for listening. Questions and answer session is now, and in this time, from questions I get, I'll be able to share my life experiences, how I was able to get mine, and what was done, even to the point of interviews, you see. So I'll be able to share with us, and I'm really willing and looking forward to learning a lot from you all. Thank you.
I want to request my elder Dan to ask you some guiding questions to enlist the conversation.
Thank you.
Why did you decide to go for the PhD? I know it's something that requires a lot of energy and a lot of commitment. So at what point did you decide that you want to go for the PhD and then start that application process? Maybe you could start from there.
All right, Dr. Dan, thank you so very much for that beautiful questions. I mean, that's like the question that will encompass everything. It's important to know why one would want to go for a PhD. I mean, we all know PhD is not like one exam you just read, prepare for, then you sit for the exam and then you pass it in one sitting, 3 months, and you finish it. And it's not like it's not a study or a task that one would be tutored like you don't know this, I show you this. So it requires a lot of work. It requires a lot of willingness, self-push, and commitment. So why? In my own case, permit me to say I've heard of different reasons why people go into PhD. But for me, during my MSc, I conducted the research, and the research got to a point that there were too many questions yet unanswered, because of the level of innovation in the research. So there was a quest. I was hungry to know more, to do more about this. And because the project I did during my MSc is something I really truly had passion for and interest in. So that speaks to what I mentioned in the slide earlier, your research interest and what you are passion for, you see. So I wanted to do more. I wanted to take it further. And this hinges on the fact that it's got my research interest has a lot to do with giving back to humanity, giving to life. I actually researched on cancer. So personally, I feel there's a lot to do with cancer, you see. And yes, this also corroborated with the ideology of my supervisors. And that also speaks to one of the factors I mentioned earlier in the presentation, identifying supervisors. So for me, if I'll say, it was because I had an internal anger for something that is not done yet, and I feel I want to take it further because I've started something close to it. And so that can be a reason. You have a research interest, you have done a bit of work earlier, and you feel no, this is not the end of it. My eyes have seen, I've been able to see further, and I want to take this further. I really have interest in taking this further. That's for what worked for me. But I'll say this may not be the same for everyone. For some people, uh, academics is a reason they want to go for a PhD. Yes, is of course part of it for me also. You see, but primarily for me, I started a project. I see the problem. I resolved to a point. I needed to take it further, and the novelty is still there. The gap is still there. You see, so I wanted to push the research wall further a bit, and I need a PhD to do that. So when the opportunity came, I jumped into it. I hope I've been able to answer your question, Dr. Dan.
Wow, wow, wow. Congratulations. That I can see, it's a very big why. And when somebody contacts me that they want to be mentored for the PhD, I quickly ask them, why do you need a PhD? And I can quickly tell from the start, the way somebody answers that question. You've answered it beautifully, and I'm not surprised that you are able to win a fully funded scholarship. I remember when Abel contacted me for the first time, I asked him the same question. Why do you need to go for a PhD? Abel, would you like to remind us that the beautiful answer that you gave, that up to now it still fascinates me and makes me proud of you?
I said that in Uganda, we have a disease called Rift Valley fever. It affects both animals and humans. And it is lately increasing, but less attention has been given to it. It was discovered in 1931 in Kenya, but there has been less efforts in tracking that is called Rift Valley fever disease. In Uganda, it takes us by surprise. So I want to do a PhD to develop a mathematical model for me to be able to predict those outbreaks such that I can guide the government officials where to put control measures and where to put, when to expect it and what they should do in preparation for that potential outbreak. That was my response to you, Dr. Dan, in 2021.
Yes, beautiful. And I replied, you are ready for a PhD. And after a few months, even we didn't complete better with the coaching and mentoring program, Abel, remember? We didn't even complete. You had wonderfully funded scholarship. So what am I saying here? Guys, if you are here and you are looking for a PhD, you need to have a big why, okay? Contributing to research, conducting original research, giving back to community. That has to be very clear. If it's not clear, trust me, you could have a very good CV, you could have very good grades, but you still struggle to win a fully funded scholarship. Adedayo, I'm impressed by your answer, and Abel, those beautiful answers, they're always very, very important. Yeah. Abel,
I should just add something that Adedayo did not even finish one math in my coaching program. I shouldn't forget that as well.
Yeah, you see, you see when your big why is very clear, you don't need to spend months and months being mentored, being coached. We just give you something small like this, and then you'll be getting your fully funded scholarship. So knowing your big why that's related to research, not just I want to be known as having a PhD, or I want to get more money. Those things don't really add up. Okay, have a big why connected to research. Trust me, a scholarship is just waiting for you somewhere.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dan, for taking on Adedayo. Adedayo, so let's begin small. Can you just share with members, how did you start the journey with the Abel, and how did you start the journey with African Center for Career Mentorship?
Thank you, Abel. Okay, so getting to know Abel and Africa Career Mentorship, it was Africa Center for Career Mentorship. I was already thinking in my mind and considering, oh, I think I'd like to go for a PhD. I think I'd like to go for a PhD. And then through someone, a very respectable personality, who I had conversation with, she was like, young man, with the way you're speaking and the kind of research you're doing, I have a scholar I want to introduce you to. And she introduced me to this young man who I have not yet known. And we had a phone conversation. Then it was like, okay, let's have a meeting. And yes, it's Dr. Abel. And my first meeting with Abel, I was a bit skeptical initially at the initial stage. Like, I mean, what are we meeting for? For now, I'm not looking at any other research. I just want to get my PhD sorted. My head is looking into my PhD. And when we go talking, at a point I had to tell Abel, like, Abel, can I tell you this? I'm considering my PhD and I need your help. You see, because I was, for every minute, I will say, and I've told Abel this severally. For every minute you spend with Abel, you get value. This is not to blow his horns, but to let us know the truth. I have known him for some little time now, not too long ago, but the values I have gotten through Abel is unquantifiable. So I enjoyed the meeting, and he also said, I'm bringing you on certain tasks. And these were tasks that totally aligned with my research areas also, specifically precision medicine, applying machine learning in precision medicine and so on and so forth, And I was like, this is not just a coincidence. This is a destiny for me. So from there, I started my PhD applications. And at that moment, when I got to a point, I needed advice. You see, you don't know it all. So I tried my bit, but I mean, it's just like I wasn't too sure of the bit I put down, especially in the area of my motivation letter. That's the statement of purpose for some institutions. For me, for my school, it was tagged motivation letter. So I spoke to African Careers through Dr. Abel, and he said he was going to help me. And we started analyzing my motivation letter. It took me nearly a week to put my supposedly strong motivation letter together. But when Abel went through it in 30 minutes, he was able to pick out issues without knowing too much of my, I mean, I would say it's totally in my research area, you know, but you see, it marvels me how he was able to match the advertisement of my project with my experience and then build up and restructure, remodel my motivation letter. African careers, through Abel, was able to help me review my motivation letter twice. And I tell you, my motivation letter went in. At the time I was sending it in, I was so sure if I give it to any institution, not just my university now, any other institution, it will scale through to get a PhD. Not only that, we equally went through my CV together. And honestly, I'll say for everyone here, permit me to say this. Africa Center for Career Mentorship is a body that is a blessing to Africa. I don't know how we got to, people here get to know this organization, but I'll say I have benefited, and especially when it comes to PhD application, that which was why, what I had in connection with them really, with PhD application, they do it so seamlessly and they make life a lot easier for us. So my CV was equally reviewed. My proposal was reviewed. And what more? Every other things. Also, the center also helped me in the preparation for my interview. My interview was tough. It was really tough because the competition for the funding in my school was so high. Many people applied, smart, intelligent individuals. I got to know one or two, and I thought in my mind, how could I have even aced the interview to pass, and these guys did not pass it? So, interview preparation was another thing I enjoyed through the center.
I wanted to pick again, just to help members pick it well. So when we are talking, the first meeting, how long did we talk? And what point did I begin cutting you short? Because I wanted to bring the story of Nairobi as well, and the story for your work experience, because all that made it possible for your PhD to be successful. And even the impression you created with me in the first meeting, if you remember, I could say you stop there. So can you just bring that story? Because you're leaving that part, yet members on the call, they may think that getting a scholarship is for everyone. But if they can appreciate that you had done good work, you had a first class master's degree as well, you had a distinction for your master's research. I think that is also, I want you to bring that story as well. When we are talking in the first meeting, what were some of the questions I asked? And as you went on, and what did you see in my questions? Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So practically, I'm a data scientist, and you see, I try to consider GDPR a whole lot, but yeah, Dr. Abel here has given me the go ahead to talk about the story and how we go to Nairobi. So our first meeting was just to interact, get to know ourselves. So he asked me, Adedayo, can I meet you? And then I told him, okay, I studied data science from my institution, Canterbury Christ University in the UK. And he asked, okay, what about your research that you mentioned to me on the phone? And I said, yes, I developed machine learning models that predict cancer, and that I'm looking at advancing it to identifying biomarkers for precision medicine. And I was like, okay, wait, tell me about this. So I did some explanations, and while I was doing that, um, permit me if I don't remember all, he said, hold on. Okay, yes, I finished my master's degree with distinction, and I did my project. My MSc project was developed into a paper that was submitted for a conference in Greece. When he heard all that, like, you had an MSc project developed into a paper, that's a journal, going for a conference, and you're doing this research, and this is your area of interest. I think I want to bring you on board to a systematic review. And then he told me about the systematic review. I said, yes, I have interest. And then while we were talking again, he said, there is a conference coming up at Nairobi. That's creating value out of data for, a conference of data scientists coming together. And I said, I'd like to bring you on board also. These things were great opportunities for me to connect, network, and of course to learn. I didn't see them coming, but Dr. Abel brought them, like, dropped them on my laps. And I said, am I sure? Are you sure I'm qualified for all this? And he said, the work you have done in the past has proven to me that you have a future, and I'm ready to hold your hands on. And so that was how we got to go to Nairobi together for that conference, fully funded conference. And honestly, with regards to my previous work and my experience,
Actually,
I
before you
think,
go to that work in Nigeria, how was that conference preparation, but also your involvement in the systematic review useful for your PhD application?
yes, now I'm going there. That's where I was saying my experience. Now, qualifying for a PhD in my university, because it was very competitive, I said, like I said earlier, was not easy, but I had privileges. Now, I'll mention the privileges. One of them was the fact that, yes, I have developed my MSc project to a paper. That was one. Two was that I had a connection with Dr. Abel. I specifically mentioned him in my motivation letter, and that was a big plus for me, because networking and connection was important. Three was on the systematic review that Dr. Abel brought me on to. We started working, and in doing a PhD, you have to do literature review. This is through the systematic review techniques. And it's a skill. It's a skill that if you have it, is more like you're already a PhD candidate. So in my motivation letter, and of course in my motivation letter, I included it there that I'm also currently on a research work developing, getting a systematic review done with these people I mentioned, and I mentioned specifically Dr. Abel's name and his institution, University of Cambridge. And you see, we had a link to verify the systematic review. So, and I provided the link. I know back then my school did a research. They went to the link to confirm.
It is called Prospero. It's
Yes,
called
Prospero, thank you.
Yeah, registering your work with Prospero,
Yeah,
our work
yes.
with Prospero.
Yes. And again, I also put in there that I have been meritoriously nominated to attend to a conference where we'll be developing a journal also that will be published with Nature. You see, during my interview, I was reserving some of these things for the interview time. During my interview, I elaborated significantly on this I dwelled on them really because I could see my interviewers going very attentive when it got to the point that my current research. Yes, for my interview, I was made to prepare presentation slide to say about my previous research experience, current research work, and the future research interest. So the previous ones, I made reference to my MSc research and of course my BSc research. Then the current one, it has to do with, I did not have a current research other than the systematic review. Dr. Abel brought me on. And of course, the journal that we'll be developing from the Nairobi meeting as a deliverable at the Nairobi conference. And this really helped me. As a matter of fact, if I had not had those two current works, my chances may be a bit slimmer. So that really helped. And I dwelled on them during my interview. They were my strengths, really. So I dwelled on my strengths. I needed to bring it home, like Dr. Abel would say, bring it home. So I did that. Thank you.
Yeah, so Adedayo permit me to add some flesh. I think, so just to bring the story to those who joined in later on. So Adedayo was recommended to me by one of my old friends. And so she told me, okay, she called me on phone. She sent me a text on WhatsApp, say, can we talk for a short time? I'm like, yes. So she called me and says, Abel, I'm with a gentleman here. This gentleman needs your help. And I said, so what help? Said, no, but I think if I connect two of you, you people will be able to connect and work together and learn from each other. I said, okay, please give me, and I speak to him on phone. So I spoke to Adedayo for a very short time, and I was quick to give him my number, and I told him, let's keep in touch. In that first call, we were able to schedule a meeting, on a Zoom meeting, and I told him I was going to send him a message on WhatsApp, such that I can give him the Zoom link and we could have a meeting.
Yeah.
So the first meeting, Adedayo, when he was introducing himself, I saw a very intelligent gentleman. And so I told, as he was telling me, I've worked on cancer, I was able to develop a machine learning. I said, okay, you stop there. Do you have an affiliation in Nigeria? Because I was leading a project, which I'm leading, up to now, I'm still leading that project. That project is aimed at creating value out of health data on African continent. So I wanted to identify somebody. When he was introducing himself in just only 2 minutes, I had seen that he was a potential candidate who would make a great contribution to that paper, which we are working on, which is funded by NIH and is going to be published by Nature. So I told him, you stop. Do you have an affiliation in Nigeria? I said, yes, I have an affiliation in Nigeria where I finished my first degree and I am still in touch with the professor. I said, okay, you wait a minute. So I'm going to put you on the program whereby we can work on a project together, and I think you will be a very good candidate. So he continued introducing himself. Said, during my master's work, I worked on machine learning and precision medicine and cancer. I said, you stop there. I said, right now I'm working on a systematic review, which is aimed at understanding the application of artificial intelligence and machine learning applications in mathematical modeling in low and middle income countries. And I told him, so that's a very big project. I'm like, are you willing to join such a project? Because if you've been working on machine learning, you would be a great person to contribute our systematic review. He says, yes, I'm happy to contribute to that paper. Said, okay, you stop there. I'm going to add you to this project as well. So I was in charge of those projects, and I was able to make a decision that I need to have him on my team in around 5 minutes of just him introducing himself. And basically, that's how we hit the ground running. That's how we hit the ground running. Long story short, I was able to write an email, introduced him to the team in the US, and they processed his air ticket and everything, and we traveled together in Nairobi. But even after he got the air ticket and he was planning to travel and we were planning to travel, that's when we now began working on the motivation letter, the application, the CV realignment. They even called him for the interview within a very short time. I think it was around 2 weeks, and we hadn't traveled at that time. We had 2 mock interviews to prepare for those for the interview that he went to. And yeah, we got ready and he got set. And from his presentation, I told him he was ready. Told him go and bring the big thing home. He didn't stop there. He told me he had identified another person who was in that department where he was going to, and that person had accepted to give him another mock interview. So, Adedayo, do you want to talk more briefly about that mock interview? Is that was he
Okay.
a postdoc or a PhD student?
Yeah, a PhD student. Yeah.
Yeah. Talk about that as well, because these colleagues should learn about all those things as well.
Okay, thank you. So, with all Dr. Abel had supported me with, I didn't stop there really because I I needed to bring it home. Like that's the phrase, just bring it home. So I tried to establish connections a lot, especially with regards to my PhD. I'm not a social media person so much, but when I see quality connections, I key into it. So I made this PhD student, and then I was like, okay, I'm doing this. This is what I've done. This is what I've done. He said I think that was like a day before my interview. So the best that guy, I mean, the PhD person could do for me was say, okay, let's have a mock interview together. And when we started, he asked me these questions, common questions, which I think if we have time, or maybe in other sessions we can talk about. Why do you want to do PhD? What are your key strengths and your weaknesses? How do you manage workloads? And so on and so forth. When I answered the question, the guy was like, hey, wait, you're ready for PhD. Like, have you done this interview before? So I said, well, I've been lucky enough to meet someone who has mentored me twice on the interview preparations. So he said, I mean, with what he has heard me, the responses I've provided, I was good to go for the interview. And then he now checked my slide because I was going to present a slide. I didn't have opportunity of doing that slide with Dr. Abel. So he brought in some opinions on my slides, and that was just it. He was just emphasizing like, you are fully prepared already. I don't need to interview you anymore. We did the mock just once, and it was like, that's it. Thank you, Doctor.
Okay. Yeah. So let's now get some questions from the members in terms of your preparation and your application. So how many applications did you make and how many went through?
I was so lucky not to do so many. I think I did 3 applications, and not that I got a feedback from one to say my interview date, but as at that time, I've already gotten this. And one did not respond. I didn't get a feedback from the other institution at all. So 3, and I got this one.
So did you want to say the other two, did you have mentorship as well or not?
No, I've not met you then. I didn't do any mentorship, nothing like Africa Center for Career Mentorship, nothing.
What difference did you see between the application we made with you with the mentorship and the ones without the mentorship? What difference did you see?
Really, just like in every letter writing, like we were taught back then, when you write a letter, please read it again or give it to someone to read. You see, when I did those applications myself, I tried to put in my very best. I'm a bit good with researching, So I researched and then I find what should go into a typical application. And the same thing I did for this one, I got the help of African Center for Career Mentorship. And with the best I brought to them, they were able to still identify loopholes. You see, those little things matters a lot. See, yes, we are saying nobody is perfect in anywhere in the world. But then when you are competing with many people, each person wants to bring in their very best. Unfortunately, it's not like we are doing the same application together in the same hall. So you don't know who you're really competing with. You don't know how prepared that person is. So the best you could do is go through a mock system. So I went through a mock system, a checking system, and a mock system. Checking system by the way of checking my documents, my motivation letter, checking my CV, typically reading through line by line in corroboration with the advert details, you see? And then to even the point of saying, I need to understand the interest of the supervisors of the project, you see? So we have to look at all those things. And I tell you, when I did on my own, I just like, oh, I could have graduated with distinction and I wouldn't get PhD. No. So I did the best, and then they didn't really come out well. And then Africa Center for Career Mentorship helped me to identify the loopholes, to identify the T's I need to cross, the I's I needed to dot, and especially interview preparation. The first mock interview, after conducting, Dr. Abel was like, how will I rate myself? And then I said 7. He said, why would you rate yourself 7? Why not 10? You see, that question is a driller. That for me made me to now come back into myself, to now think and analyze what my responses myself. So that also prepared me. It was a platform for a better preparation. So it prepared me better for my second mock. And I remember during the second mock, Dr. Ebe said, Adedayo, you are ready. Go and bring the PhD home. Yes,
Yeah, that's true. So they're asking you, were you required to do English proficiency tests?
No, I did not do English proficiency test because one, I studied my master's here in the UK, and so I didn't need that. Two, even my first degree was taught in English language, so no, that was waived for me.
Yeah, and just to add a point that Adedayo was already in the UK and also in the same university where he had done his master's from, so it was a bit easier. Just to emphasize something, the first attempt that we did with Adedayo to see how ready he was for the mock, I told him that he wasn't ready. I told him he wasn't ready, and we needed another interview with him. Adedayo, how did you feel?
A bit apprehensive, I must say, because for me, I thought I've prepared enough. I thought I had prepared enough, and I prior to coming to do PhD, all of my interviews in life prior to this PhD interview, I've always aced my interviews. So naturally, I feel like there is no interview I will not nail. But here is Dr. Abel telling me I wasn't prepared for a PhD interview. I felt like, now this is it. If someone who has been there, who is expert in mentoring people into this area is saying he has assessed me and he feels I need to go and check myself and then represent in a second mock, then there was an issue. Then that night, I took it serious and uh, I practically prepared in a different way. You see, because naturally, how do we prepare for interview? We look at possible questions and then we try to present. Like I on my laptop, put on my video, like to record myself, and you see, I see the question, I answer, then I see what I've done. Then I compare to what was said or how I presented my responses in the first mock. So yeah, a bit apprehensive, a bit disappointed about myself, but I felt okay, this is an opportunity. I see someone who can check me. You see, that checking was very necessary. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, we have run out of time, and another person is asking that, do you have a stipend? Are you allowed to teach or work in line of academia or have reasonable working allowance? Is it advisable at a PhD level?
I'll say for in the UK, for a funded project or scholarship, yes, you get stipend. One of the requirements of my PhD is that I'll do teaching for 50 hours in a trimester. So, that's part of it. And then work in line of academia to have a reasonable living allowance. You see, first thing is you get stipend. If you want to work, I'll say I've seen PhD students working, but then it depends on how you're able to manage your workload. In my presentation slide, I said time and task management. If you're able to manage and juggle, but do not forget that in the UK, you have a limit of 20 hours a week to work if you want to work while studying.
Okay.
Don't know if I've answered correctly.
Yeah. So generally, what advice would you give another master's student or a PhD person looking for opportunities? Somebody from a low-income country wants to go to another country for studies. What I know you hinted on in your presentation, but some members hadn't come. But what's your quick take-home messages, advice that you would give? Maybe 5 or something like that.
Okay, so I'll say, please believe in yourself, go for it, get support. Believe in yourself. When you have identified your interest, your area where you have passion, believe in yourself. When you believe in yourself, don't sit on it. Go for it. Nobody will bring it. You have to go for it. So when you go for it, please never walk alone. Get support. African Center for Career Mentorship is a very strong support. I can recommend them 10 over 10. Okay, even if it's 12 over 10, I can give them. I have witnessed it. We have testimonies, and I'm proud. I'm proud to say, please go to them. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So thank you so much, Adedayo, and we will stop here. And Patience says, I'm so inspired by this presentation. Thank you, African Center, for hosting the meeting. I'm still learning and I will be able to engage in the subsequent meeting. Thank you, Patience. Cosmas says, is there a fully funded scholarship being offered? Adedayo, do you want to shoot at that?
I think Dr. Abel will be in the best position to answer that.
No, I will also request my elder to also respond to that, my mentor. Dr. Dan, do you want to shoot at that? from Cosmos.
So to answer your question, are there fully funded scholarships? Yes, very many. Go to Digest for Me scholarship app. It's like a buffet of scholarships. And basically, you know what we do at the buffet? You serve yourself.
I also want to inform you that my colleague and my mentor who helped me to get scholarships is on the call. It's called Dr. Dandani Musinguzi. And he has an app he has developed. It is called Digest for Me app. And it is free. That app is free. Now that app has synthesized information. It has synthesized scholarship opportunities. And it has links to various resourceful YouTube channels. But I should warn you that the app has very good information. Roger says, I'm targeting to focus on international humanitarian projects, not academia after the PhD. Do I have to prepare differently right from taking on the PhD application? Dr. Dan.
You need a PhD in the first place. That we need to go back. Why do you need a PhD? And if you don't love research, if you have not identified a significant research problem, then I don't think you are ready for the PhD. Maybe you could try other doctorates, professional doctorates. That would be the best thing. But the problem with those professional doctorates, they rarely give scholarships. So you may need to go back to yourself and ask yourself, why do I need a PhD?
Rogers, kindly unmute.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Musingzi and Dr. Abel. Well, my question, just for purposes of introduction, I'm Rogers. I'm just a master's student, but hoping to complete next year. I'm looking into applying for PhD as soon as I finish my master's. But one of my focus is to get into the international projects. I'm really so much into project implementation, and that's where most of my experience lies. And I think I would be better remembered in that line. So that's why I was inquiring, do I need, because I want to do a PhD such that I can get better experience in the field, my field of interest. Yeah. So that's why I was asking is if I really need to prepare differently such that after my PhD, I can find myself there, not purely in the academia or research.
Okay, now I get it. Go for the PhD, go for a PhD. And when you finish your PhD, apply to those international organizations and you'll be ready to go there. Yes, it does not necessarily mean that once you do a PhD, you will die in academics, teaching and doing research. No, you can branch and go and work with international organizations. In fact, they will welcome you. But you need to be very strategic as you are doing your PhD. Start networking with people from those international organizations. They will not just hire you because you've got a PhD. You also need to demonstrate, to start early, work with them, get opportunities to research with them, do something so that you are preparing yourself for those international projects and working with international organizations. So that when you finish, they will see, wow, this is the guy we are waiting for. But if you concentrate on doing your PhD and you don't network, then when you finish, you may not even have somewhere to go.
Yeah, Dr. Lane, thank you so much. I want you to talk about the upcoming meeting with you because I can see some of the questions which you are going to answer very well during the during your presentation. briefly just talk about it, because I can see Leah asking and Stephen asking some of the things we can which I'm sure we are going to discuss in our meeting.
Okay. On April 7th, that will be a Sunday from 8 to 9 p.m. East African time or Ugandan time. I'll be having a session which I've called Ask Dr. Dan Musinguzi anything about securing a fully funded PhD scholarship. Now, prepare those questions and really come and ask, because I'll be giving answers, practical answers to all the questions that you have. Now, for you to be invited to this session, you need to register. So send me a WhatsApp here so that I can send you a registration form. This WhatsApp here, just in a minute, it's coming. 32484 in the chat. Okay, send me a WhatsApp or send me an email at dan@musinguzi.com. WhatsApp number there, email address there. Serve yourself, set you a spot. Over to you, Abel.
Thank you so much. And Adedayo, thank you for sparing time to talk to us. And we wish you the very best in your PhD studies, and congratulations on the award.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, go and succeed, and go and make the university proud and yourself proud.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for your support. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr.
Yeah.
Dan.